assistant coach at UCLA. And just a announcement here, we are going to be recording this at the request of some personnel and some staff at UCLA. They want to use this for some sort of marketing or PR or media going forward. So, we will be recording this. So if you could, watch your language if anything like that should come up. But we've never had an issue before that, but just wanted to let everybody know that ahead of time. Well, Coach, again, thank you very much for being here. We appreciate your time. We know you're busy. Congratulations, first of all, on securing the commitment of Peyton from Long Beach Poly earlier this week. That's a great pickup for you guys. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
And we're going to kind of start at the beginning here. You've had a pretty long, distinguished coaching career. You've been in just about you've coached in every time zone in this country. So we're going to kind of go through each one of those and get a pretty good feel here. So we're going to start at the beginning. I know we just talked about this just a second ago. You're from Jersey City. You graduated from St. Anthony's. You were childhood friends and teammates with Bobby Hurley, and you played for Bobby Hurley Sr., who is, as we all know, is a Hall of Fame basketball coach. What was it like playing for him? You've come across hundreds of thousands, thousands of coaches in your life. What was it like playing for him specifically? And did seeing all those college coaches on campus every day at practice and games, did that influence your decision to get into college coaching?
Well, first of all, thanks. And I'm glad to, I know we have a small group, which is fine, an intimate group of coaches from California at all levels. So it's great. And, I was fortunate to grow up. I grew up with the Hurleys. I literally lived on the same block as the Hurleys. So I knew Coach Hurley as Mr. Hurley because he was my friend's dad. And then obviously I decided to go to St. Anthony's, and played baseball and basketball. And we were really good in both, of course. And he, in my mind, he's one of the great coaches of all time. I know he's a Hall of Famer, and I'm biased, of course. But one thing that I think that stands out to me about him is he did so much with so little. He didn't have a fancy gym. We played at a bingo hall, or we practiced in a bingo hall that was falling apart, and had to, after practice, put up chairs and tables and take chairs and tables down before we could shoot and practice. And so we had to travel and play on the road all the time. We never really had a home gym. And so, I think that stands out to me the most about Coach Hurley is that he never made excuses. He was a guy that was going to demand that we all competed, play with heart, intensity. And so a lot of that I saw as a player and as moving on into as a coach, that those are the things that I really believe in. And very fortunate, and we'll talk about it, but very fortunate to be with my boss, who is, similar in some ways and thinks the same way. So that's been a great fit regarding that. And as far as college, we were surrounded by tons of college coaches at St. Anthony's every day. Coaches would come by at big numbers, and so you get to know people. And PJ Carlissimo stands out the most. He recruited our program a lot. I wasn't good enough for Seton Hall, of course, but became good friends with him. And to this day, if he saw me, we'd laugh at some of the stories back in the old St. Anthony's days. But I never thought I wanted to be involved in sports to some degree. I never thought about college coaching. That never crossed my mind. I just wanted to be involved in sports, and I gravitated towards basketball more than baseball because I just thought it was a more enjoyable sport. But I got my first coaching itch, coaching baseball in Little League baseball. And so that got me into wanting to be a coach. I didn't know college, high school, or where this was going to go. But then jumping around, Brad, but it got me thinking about this stuff. But a friend of mine who coached at Marist High School used to be an assistant for Coach Hurley back in the day. And he had built a really good program at Marist. He had a bunch of Division talent and players, and he talked me into coaching with him and being his JV coach and assistant varsity coach. And just coming off that coaching the little league team, it got my juices flowing to get into coaching. And so that's why I gravitated towards coaching. That's what I wanted to do. And then kind of fell in love with it from there.
Awesome. Anything specific from Coach Hurley Sr. that still resonates with you today that you're talking about with the players at UCLA today, things that you learned, 30 years ago in high school that you're still, strong in your belief system today that you're talking to the guys at UCLA?
Yeah, the skill development part, like that to me, the drills that Coach Hurley used to do with us in high school, some of those drills I still do today with our players. Just that, I think that component about, learning from a great coach. I know we got some really good coaches and some guys that I know on here. That's vital as a coach. And so I saw that as a high school player, and I realized that, to me, it showed that the coach really cared about the players. He was trying to get us better. And thinking back in high school, you probably don't think about those things, but as you become an adult, you realize like all those things that he did, like he focused on our skill development. He wanted us to get better, no matter who the player was. If he was the best player or the worst player, he was always trying to get them better. And so that kind of resonated with me as a coach, and something I love to do. It's probably the most, the best thing, the most fun as a coach is to develop our players and spend time with our players. Unfortunately, we're not doing that right now on our end, and it kind of is disappointing because ultimately, as a coach, that's the best thing about our job, in my opinion. It's not wearing the suits, being on TV and playing, big games, which is exciting, of course, but to me, practice, player development, that's why I got into coaching, and that comes from Coach Hurley.
Take a quick pause here. Any questions from the group? Feel free to ask away, or if you'd like to, if you don't want to speak up, you can obviously put it into the chat feature, and we will ask that question to Coach Savino if anybody has anything right now.
Actually, I do. I know that the coverage I've seen on Coach Hurley, he really didn't hold back in the way he addressed his players. He wasn't afraid. A lot of kids are accustomed to the criticism sandwich. Compliment followed by criticism, followed by a compliment. I think Coach Hurley really avoided those excessive compliments and was really, really alpha, very direct in dealing with his players. And we're dealing with kids in a time when that doesn't go quite as well. How have you in your own career maybe taken his directness and his candor and balanced it with the way kids are used to being spoken to today?
Steve, that's a great question. I laugh because when you start talking about that, it brings back memories. And he had this unique ability, and hopefully I don't lose track of your question, but he made us. He was so tough on us, but we wanted to make him proud, if that makes sense. Like we wanted to, because he was so hard on us, we wanted to do some good things that he would say, Darren, that was really good. And you would go home thinking, Coach Hurley said I did a good thing. So you were excited about that compliment. And so that sticks with me. But as a young coach, I was very, tough, disciplinarian. Not that I'm not now, but as you get older, you start to, slow down a little bit, do more teaching, don't get as mad as you would as a younger coach, and you have to really catch yourself and be careful on how you present and how you instruct the players. We would never tolerate. We don't tolerate now lack of effort. So I think those things, they would get under my skin. The lack of effort, the intensity, that would bother me as a coach more than anything. Making a mistake in a drill, missing a shot, those things happen. Even the great players make mistakes. But, as coaches, we got to demand from our players the best effort that you can give. And, obviously playing for Coach Hurley, if you didn't do that, he would roast you. I mean, you couldn't couldn't get on to the next drill without getting crushed. So, we saw that and we were like, we better play hard, or we better listen to what he's saying. And I went, it's funny, as a college coach, you go back to watch them practice and recruiting. And I was amazed by he would have like 3 teams out there. His third team, if you watch them play in a game, he would be blowing somebody out up 30. He put his third team in there. And usually in high school, your third team, and you guys are, it's hard for the kids to remember everything. Not only are they not the best players, but they can't concentrate. His third team would execute better than the team they were playing, like their sets and things. And it's a mark of a great coach. That fact in practice, he talks, everybody's quiet, they listen. The guy it was unbelievable. So I remember a lot of those things, but I'm in a different day and age, of course. This is different. The kids are different. I find at UCLA, our players, we were really fortunate to inherit great kids, hardworking kids. They needed a little different direction maybe on how we wanted to do things, but it was really enjoyable to get to know them and to coach them because they did want to learn, they did want to listen. So I think good players, I think that these kids get a bad rap sometimes. Good players want to be coached, and if you're belligerent and you have all the answers and you don't want to be coached, well then you can find a place that will take you. But at UCLA, we're not going to allow that. We're going to try to bring guys in that want to get coached and pushed.
Hey, Brad, can I ask a question real quick?
Absolutely. Go right ahead.
Hey, Darren.
Yes, sir.
So just going off of that, have you, now that you've been on the West Coast for whatever it is, a year and change,
Yep.
Can you talk about the difference on East Coast kids versus West Coast kids, if there is one, and what are they?
Yeah, it's a myth, in my opinion, because Brad might have a question about this. If you go back to my career, I coached at New Mexico for 3 years, and we had a lot of California kids on our team, and they were not soft. I didn't think they were soft. It never came to my mind that they were soft. And so I had experience back then, and then obviously coming here, like your player, Colin Jules Bernard, he's anything but soft. Now, he's got to get better at certain things. He's got to do this, and this. But as far as physical toughness, these guys on our team brought it. And we had no issues with, I wouldn't say no issues, but for the most part, our guys competed, and they gave us their best effort. And I don't see, them being soft at all. And, depends on what kind of player you bring in, no matter where they're from. There are certain kids that are from the Midwest that might be considered soft, or even in New York. We've had some guys where we brought from New York at Cincinnati, and Nick's yelling at me, where did you get this soft guy from? So that can come from anywhere. But I don't see the that being prevalent. I know a lot of people thought that when we came to the UCLA and the Pac-12 that we'd be able to, push a certain kind of brand that would be successful because the Pac-12 is soft. I didn't see that. I mean, I saw USC was tough. Arizona was tough. There were some tough teams, physical teams. And so I haven't seen that yet. And we're not going to bring those kind of guys to UCLA anyway. So hopefully moving forward, that's not a problem.
Anybody else? Yeah, go ahead, Chuck. Go ahead, John. You're on mute.
Yeah, I got it. Hi, Coach. John Pilar. I'm head coach and athletic director at Calabasas High School. This was asked. I had to take a call. How do you guys deal with having so many guys on your roster who expect to play?
Yeah, not easy. One of the things that we took a lot of pride in at Cincinnati is we did not have a lot of transfers, and which is unique in the day and age of transfer. We have over 1,000 plus transfers right now in Division I. And I think it's because in recruiting our team, we kind of told them the truth, and where we didn't promise them anything. And so they didn't come in expecting certain things. Although even with that, they're expecting certain things, and they all want to start and they all want to play a lot. So it's hard. But I think that's the first step. And in high school, obviously, you're probably not recruiting kids. They're kids that show up for the most part. Certain schools might be recruit, but they show up and, you have to deal with it. But I think if you lay the law down in the beginning and they know what it's about, you have less of that. As time goes on, it certainly is going to rear its head, of course. And, I thought we did a good job of getting to the kids early, talking to them. Like, I think communication is huge, even though it might be a conversation the kids don't want to hear, and they don't agree with. But I think if you have that communication and don't avoid the conversation, I think that will help you. It's not the exact science to it, but I think it helps. And I'll bring up a story. We had a player at Cincinnati, Gary Clark, who was a great player for us at Cincinnati. The Rockets took him on a kind of a two-way deal. He made his way onto the team and signed him as a free agent. And best kid in the world, by the way. And now he's with the Magic. He had 17 the other night in a scrimmage down there in the bubble. And so he was playing early on at Houston. His first year, was undrafted, signed as a free agent, and was playing like 20 minutes a game, 25 minutes a game. They had injuries, so he played. He told me that the coach and the coaching staff, he was so excited. He felt confident. He felt like, I'm a part of the team. I'm doing good. I'm playing. And then when the guys came back from injury, he stopped playing. And not only did he stop playing, but they stopped talking to him. It was like he wasn't even on the team. Like he would walk by the coaches and they would turn their head when they saw him. They were trying to avoid him. And to me, just listening to Gary talk, he was hurt by that. It hurt him. He wanted to play, of course, and but tell him why he's not playing. Meet with him, coach him even more. Work with him even more, knowing that he's disappointed that he wasn't playing as much. But they didn't do that. They tried to ignore him. And hopefully he wouldn't ask questions so that's a long answer to it, but I think that would be the best way to approach that topic is just a lot of communication, even though it's a hard conversation with some kids, and show that you care, put more time in with the guys who don't play as much. And I think you can see that relationship building and it might help. John, does that answer your question?
Yes, it absolutely answers the question. You have a blessing of riches. You guys have recruited so well, and picked up the transfer that you picked up in Juzang, and the guys who had great seasons for you last year and really developed as freshmen. It's a tough spot in those recruiter positions for you, and it's a good problem to have, I guess. I'm asking if that's your take on it.
Yeah, well, we lost one guy. I wouldn't say transfer. I'd say I'm not going to say what I'm going to say, but he decided not to be with us in the middle of the season.
Right.
And so it's hard to make everybody happy. But I would say, certain guys, if I recruited them too, I would, if they complained about playing time, I would grab them and meet with them. I would say, play better. The coach does play favorites. He plays the best players. He's trying to win. Unless you're up by 30 or you're blowing people out and you have a chance to play everybody. But most coaches do play favorites. They play the best players and players that don't give them a hard time and that compete. So, that's a little bit of a harsh conversation, but I think, it has to be done with certain guys because they get too many voices in their ear about how good they really are. And so you get a chance, you got to play. We had two seniors that we started off playing a lot. And then as time went on, they didn't play as much. And so that had to be devastating to them. They were seniors. They weren't playing as much, but they handled it great. They weren't happy, of course, but they still cheered their teammates on and competed every day in practice. So, that was great to see this year for us. I mean, that was because that could have went really bad if they acted in a different way.
Now, Coach, a lot of times as the assistant, your job is to take that kid who's feeling disenfranchised because he's not playing and bring him back in. That's a really fine line when you have to deliver the message, play better. So as the assistant who's dealing with that kid who's feeling marginalized, who's feeling like they're really not a part of it, how do you tell them to play better, but bring them back in and to not make them feel like everyone's against me?
Another great question. So what I would do is this: I would have that harsh, real conversation with them, but I'll also tell them, okay, so you want to play more and you want to improve and you want to get out there and play more. So, all right, so practice tomorrow's at noon. Meet me there at 11. I'll be there at 11. You, me and you, we're going to work on some of the things that I'm talking about that you need to get better at, that coach is talking about that you need to get better at. So we're going to start today or tomorrow. 11 o'clock, I'll be there. And so you have to do that with these kids. You have to show that you care, not just by your words, but by your actions. And all he can say from there is, like, he can't say, Coach, you said this and this, but you didn't really help me. He can't say that. And so I think you got to get on the court with the kids. I think you got to show them you care. Besides your words, you got to physically do things with them. And I think that goes a long way in that scenario.
Coach, you kind of answered this. You may have answered this question already when you talked about your relationship with PJ Carlissimo, but just want to ask it anyway. We had a Zoom call back in May with Brian Dutcher, the head coach at San Diego State.
Mm-hmm.
Said, everybody needs someone to help them get their first job. You were, as you said earlier, you were the JV coach at Marist High School. From there, you went to an administrative role at Seton Hall. And then the year after that, you were working in the Big East at St. John's. So in 2 years, you went from JV basketball to an assistant coach in the Big East. That's a pretty big jump. So who would you credit the assist for that? Someone's got to help you get that first job. So who helped you get that job at Seton Hall, or who helped you go from Seton Hall, to sitting on the bench at St. John's?
Yeah. Brad, there's so many ways to answer that. There's so many factors. I was literally a JV coach, right? A friend of mine, we used to joke, we used to bust each other's chops, and he would say, he's turning to me as coach. He goes, I understand it. What do you think, I'm a JV coach? And so that used to be our joke, being around good players helped. Okay. The program that I was at Marist High School, we had like Donnell Williams, who eventually went to Seton Hall. We had really good players in our program. So of course, college coaches would see that. They see a young guy that's good, he's aggressive, he knows basketball. I went to St. Anthony as I was connecting some of those players. So that helped. That helped the interest. Greg Herenda, who was at Seton Hall at the time, noticed that, and he befriended me and saw that I had, the kids' ears. And back then, it just, the rules were different. There was much more freedom. There's a lot more events to go to. So I just built a good relationship with him. But so he brought me to Seton Hall, thinking that we were going to get this kid at Marist High School named James Felton. Jerry's got a big encyclopedia of names, but he was an East Coast kid. He was a top 50 recruit. Eventually, he went to St. John's. But and then they had a kid, Aljamal Bassett, at St. Anthony's that I was coaching in the summer at camps. So all this stuff was going on, right? And that's how most guys get in. It's about who you're connected to, players, not all the time, but players you're connected to, programs you're connected to, and that is attractive in some ways to certain programs. So that's how kind of the interest got for me. And then going to sit from Seton Hall, and I'm going to jump to the next thing, going from Seton Hall to St. John's, Fran Fraschilla, who I got to meet when I was at Marist High School, would come. He was the coach at Manhattan at the time. Come to workouts. He would talk to me all the time. Like, he knew, like, again, he saw me working with the kids and said, this guy, I need to get this kid, under my belt here. I need to make friends with this kid. He knows so I built a relationship that way. So I'm at Seton Hall. He's at Manhattan. He gets the St. John's job. And he had told me when I was at Marist, if I ever get a job, a big job, I'm going to hire you someday. All that stuff that some young people might have heard throughout the years, right? And so I didn't know what I was doing. It was before the internet. We didn't have cell phones. I had Fran's home number, so I call from my Seton Hall office. I call Fran Fraschilla's house. It's his wife, Meg. hey, it's Darren, blah, 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 it's coach there, whatever. And he gets on the phone. I'm like, Coach, you got the job at St. John's. Congratulations. I'm ready to go. You said you were going to hire me. He laughed. We laughed about it, but I didn't know. And he didn't hire me, but he wanted to hire me, and he hired Tony Barbie instead. Who at the time Fran was very close to John Calipari. And Tony just got back from playing, and Calipari wanted him to hire Tony. And so it was a good hire, of course. Tony played, a good player, he played overseas. And so I didn't get the job, but Fran was like, hey, you did great. I love you. He was 1 and you were 1A. Like, you were going to, you were there, but I'm going to hire Tony. And he kind of explained why. And I said, hey, Coach, I get it. Appreciate you. I love you. Great. Good luck. And then we move on our separate ways. Well, as the summer goes on, I'm driving down the Jersey Shore. I'm in my little hoopty car, and I got the news on, and all of a sudden I hear breaking news that the New Jersey Nets hired John Calipari, and he's leaving UMass to go be the New Jersey Nets coach. I don't know why I thought of it. I get to my parents' house down there. I call up Fran's assistant, who was at Manhattan, Brian Cousins, who was at St. John's with him. I said, hey, I just saw Calipari took the Nets job and left UMass. You think that Tony Barbie will go back to UMass now? Because he wasn't a coach at UMass. He was a former player, and I don't know if he was even on their staff at the time. And he was like, you know what? He kind of – it was already in the works. And Bruiser Flint got the job and brought Tony Barbie back. And Fran called me the next day and said, I told you were 1A, get your stuff and come out to Queens. So – and the reason why I bring that up is if you're a young coach, I see this all the time. If you go for a job and don't get the job, don't act sour. Don't get mad. Don't burn bridges. Respect the fact that the guy even interviewed you and took the time to talk to you and try to build a relationship with him and his staff. That's a great opportunity to finally get in front of somebody who's pretty, successful person, coach, and, build that relationship. And if I don't, he maybe still would have hired me. I don't know. But I think we ended it really good when he told me, and it was disappointing to hear that he wasn't going to hire me. He was going to hire someone else. But, I wrote them notes. That back then everybody wrote a note, put it in the mail and et cetera. And I had a couple of conversations with them after that. And so I would recommend if you go for a job, and don't get it, do the best you can to make that relationship really strong with the administrators, the coach, whoever is involved. I think that would be the lesson from that experience, is to do that. And to this day, Fran is one of my best friends and mentors. Talk to him at least once a week, and we have like a big brother relationship. He's my big brother, of course. He's a lot older than me, but so.
That's great. Now, you actually answered my next question, was how to kind of build and maintain relationships as you go up through the coaching profession. So,
yeah, you don't even have to ask me, Brad. I got it. I mean,
oh yeah,
it's everything. If you don't have relationships with people, real relationships. I was on a Zoom a couple of months ago, and our young guy Nate's on here. He's our video guy and an aspiring coach, and I'm trying to teach him, like, you can reach out to certain people and fire off some text messages here and there, but you have to have a core of real relationships with people, and it takes time. You can't become I can't become, Brad, your best friend today, although we might have a little relationship now that we're doing this, and as time goes on, we'll see where our relationship goes. But you have to spend a lot of time in relationships, and you have to build relationships where, Fran Fraschilla, if I ever needed anything from Fran Fraschilla, I call him up. He's on it. He's going to do it immediately. And I have a core of people like that. Those are real relationships, and that you need those relationships for those guys to help you as you advance, or just for advice on how to deal with certain things, not necessarily coaching jobs or, the profession, so to speak. So those are really important if you want to keep moving on as a coach. And then when it comes to grassroots or AAU coaches or high school coaches or whatever, I think obviously the best way is to, I see this all the time. When you sign a player or when a player comes to your program and you recruit them through a high school coach or an AAU coach or whatever it is, that's when you really turn up the heat on your relationship, because you have all the right reasons to build and forge a tremendous relationship with these people, because you have their kid and they entrusted that you're going to do right by their kid. And there's going to be bad days and good days. And you're going to need that coach, that AAU coach or high school coach, to help you get through these difficult times with the player. And those are some of my best friends in coaching that were AAU guys or high school coaches, because our relationship through the time that we had his player at our school, we became great friends, real friends. Some of them have gone on to college coaching that were AAU guys. Like I knew David Grace when he was in Arizona. Jerry, what was the name of that AAU team? The Arizona Stars or whatever he was with?
Yeah.
Guys, like I knew him through that. There's a few other guys, Kamani Young, who's now UConn with New Heights. Like these are my friends that I built relationships with through the recruiting process. And those are the guys you got to really kind of stay in touch with. And that's how you build relationships, in my opinion. I could be wrong. I just don't like phony stuff. I don't like, text messages here and there. And you think you have a guy that's going to help you just because you exchange text messages with them. That's not reality.
Any questions from the group? Okay. Coach, wanted to touch real quick, your time at St. John's, you guys recruited and coached Ron Artest, who was spent a lot of time out here playing for the Lakers.
Yeah.
Without naming any names, can you talk about that AAU team he was on with Lamar Odom and Elton Brand, and what it was like, recruiting those guys and in New York City during those years? And what was it like coaching Artest, as a basketball player? What was he really good at? What was he, improving on? And I read that he was a math major when he was in college. So, did he have a pretty high IQ for the game? Does he kind of get shortchanged maybe by the public perception that some people have of him?
Yeah. Well, Ron was played on the legendary Riverside Church AAU program, and they were just the best AAU program in the country, arguably. They had great talent, and back then there was so many good players in New York City. And it's changed a little bit. A lot of the kids leave early; they go to different prep schools, and they leave New York City, unfortunately. But New York City was a hotbed for great talent, just like LA is and Chicago. So it was pretty fun to be around. Deciding what do we take Ron Artest or do we take Lamar Odom? How does that work? We decided to go after Ron. I don't know what is it, Meta World Peace? I know him as Ron. So Ron, it was his nickname back then. And so we took him and fierce competitor, fierce. Grew up in a tough neighborhood in Queensbridge. Fierce, highly intelligent, unique talent, unbelievable hands, big hands. And Fran was a great coach for him, because Fran might have been at the time just as crazy as Ron was. So they were a good match for each other. Fran wouldn't take any of Ron's crap, and Ron would give it to you if you allowed, you allowed it, or you showed weakness, which Fran has no weakness when it comes to, standing his ground and being a disciplinarian. So I thought their relationship was great. I thought we got a lot out of him. And, unfortunately we weren't there for his, the final, I think it was his final year. So must have left after his sophomore year. So we only had him for 1 year. Then he went pro after his sophomore year. They went to the Elite Eight the year we weren't there. Almost went to the Final Four with that team. But Ron was a unique talent, and had a lot of fun with him. Easy to coach. I was young. I wasn't much older than him, really. And he listened to everything I said, and just I enjoyed it. Never an issue with him. So his perception as he got older and played in the NBA was, wasn't the best. But I loved Ron. I thought he was a great teammate, and he was a fierce competitor.
So as you said, you guys weren't there for his second year. You guys were out at New Mexico. You guys went from St. John's to, or you went from there to
East Carolina.
Yeah, went to East Carolina. Then you spent a year there, and then you went west to New Mexico.
Lobos, yeah.
So you guys were, as you said earlier, you recruit a lot of LA kids there. You guys were really successful really early on. Geographic outsiders coming from the east to the west.
Uh-huh.
How were you able to be so successful early on with, Southern California kids, getting Chad Bell, getting some kids from Corona Centennial? Were those relationships already in place to be that successful, or did you guys simply just outwork your competition for the kids that you prioritized?
You were kind of breaking up there, Brad, but I think I got your question. Our staff, we didn't have any California guys on our staff. Jerry probably remembers Joe Dooley. Joe was a hard worker and did a great job with the Westchester program, connecting with Ed Azam and his staff. Just good. We just found good people. Like we were able to target programs that were coaches that were good guys that weren't going to judge you because they didn't really know you that well, or you're new to the area. So, just again, trying to build relationships with those guys. In New Mexico at the time, and I still think it's a sleeping giant program where it comes to, maybe you don't get all the elite Pac-12 guys, but you can get some good players to go there. It's an awesome venue. I mean, everybody knows about the pit and the electricity of that arena. So it's a pretty neat place. It's not that far away where you can, get into California, Texas, and you have to have the ability to branch out and to meet people and to build relationships. And ultimately, if you're a good guy and you show you're a good guy, I think people are willing to give you a chance. And it does help if you had somebody like, we have Rod Palmer on our staff, who's a long time California, LA guy, and high school coach, college coach, and you guys would know better than me. I've been the guy for a year. He's one of the best guys I've ever been around. So I don't know if anybody could say anything bad about him. So that helps if you can find a guy like that who's connected, who's been in that region. But if not, you got to do a good job of building relationships and quickly.
So we're going to kind of fast forward here to your time at Cincinnati with Coach Cronin. Cincinnati's known for toughness, athleticism, always good on the defensive end. You guys were a little different in the way you went about it with this concept of this open stance defense.
Yep.
We've been hearing about. So how did that come along? How did you guys discover that? How did you decide to implement that? And was that a challenge? Was there a long learning curve for you and for the players to basically start to do something which is 180 degrees different than just about everything that anybody's ever taught on defense, to really not face your man and face the ball?
Right. Yeah, you would think we were crazy trying to implement that stance. And so what happened was, I forget what year it is now, but we had Sean Kilpatrick was a senior. He was a first team All-American, and so we were losing him. He was one of our best players and toughest players. We were losing two other guys that were seniors, by far our best defensive players, by far, just warriors. And so we were losing three seniors, and then the guys returning were bad defensive players. And we had a lot of incoming new guys, a couple of junior college players, some freshmen. And so I remember after the season, we were talking, and we're like, how are we going to win any games next year? We can't guard anybody. We're not going to be able to guard anyone. So we have to figure out a defense that these guys can play that could help us. So we Mick worked with Kevin Willard, who's the head coach at Seton Hall, and they were at Louisville, and they were pretty close. And Mick developed a pretty good relationship with his dad, Ralph Willard. And Ralph at Holy Cross, and he created this kind of a 3-2 matchup zone that he took with them to Louisville with Rick Pitino, and actually got Rick Pitino to do it. And they were ferocious with it. They pressed back into it. And it was a disaster for people. They couldn't first of all, you had to beat the press. They had Peyton Siva and forget else was up there, but they were awesome in their press. And people had to deal with that. So by the time they got back to the half court, then you had to deal with this matchup zone. It was hard to run plays. It really was difficult. And so we thought we could maybe implement that with us and hide some of the weaknesses that we obviously had. And so we went up and spent some time with Ralph, and he taught us all day, taught us his defense. And we still didn't know what we were doing, but we brought it back with us and implemented it. And it was a lifesaver. And, part of that is you teach, it's a zone, it's a zone, but it's not a zone. You want the opponent. I want Colin to run his zone offense against our defense, thinking it's zone, but we're really playing man-to-man. We're going to switch everything, so it's not going to work. So that was the whole idea of that defense. Press back into it, confuse the hell out of the offense. But in order to do that, you had to play. We were still playing like it was man-to-man. We're still trying to steal the ball, deflect the ball, which is a big Rick Pitino thing. 40 deflections equals victory. That's our thing at Cincinnati and UCLA. And so we developed this open stance. So we would do you coaches out there do shell defense. You guys are in this position, seeing man and ball. We're seeing man and ball, but we're open up. And that way we could see a drive, we could see a pass, and we're still in an area and not necessarily playing a man. And so we felt that was our best way to teach it. And because of the way the zone is set up, that's the stance that the guys were in. We're able to get deflections. Our arm, it's hard to see out here, but our arm will gain more ground this way than it would be this way. It would be longer. So we were trying to get longer athletes to make the defense really effective. And that particular year when we put it in, because we didn't do it the whole time. We did it for like the last, I'd say, 4 years at Cincinnati. But that particular year is the year that Mick, unfortunately, had his brain artery thing where he couldn't coach. He was able to coach up until the first week or so of December, then didn't coach the rest of the season. So we were able to go to the NCAA tournament with Mick not coaching pretty much 3/4 of the season with a whole new team, solely because of Ralph Willard and his defense. I really believe that. We signed a junior college guard that nobody wanted who could really shoot and wanted some really tight games. But that defense, if we didn't put it in, that streak of 9 years in a row going to the tournament, it would have been over that year. And that defense, that stance, really helped us defensively and got us in. Now, we haven't used the defense at UCLA. We tried to do it early. The guys couldn't pick it up. And we were afraid that it was, already people knock us on that, the pace of play and things of that nature. Playing that style of defense, it takes forever for the other team to get a shot up. So it automatically shrinks the number of possessions in the game. So we just wanted to get away from the matchup, but we still taught that same defensive stance in man-to-man. And we use it we're going to use it again next year.
So how do you respond to the voice who says you're more susceptible to a lob or to a back cut when you're in the open stance?
You are, but then everybody else is in that stance, and your teammates should see it. So if I'm back in the back spot and I'm open up and I see in front of me that the guy's beat, well, I'm there to rotate. So we practice that. We practice those kind of drills where you're in a stance, the guy goes behind, and we're there to secure and help him. And believe it or not, Steve, it was my concern early on, like we're going to get beat back door, et cetera, et cetera. And it hasn't been an issue for us. It hasn't. And the basis is that your other teammates see what's going on and they're going to be there when the guy gets beat. And so I think it's from a help standpoint, it's effective. But I think if you can disrupt, our whole thing was don't let the other team run their offense. And I use Colin because I see his face right now. I know he likes to run all these plays and he's got really good sets. We're playing Colin's team. We're not letting him run his plays. We're going to switch things. We're going to get out in passing lanes. And he's going to have to use his best players to beat us, in an ISO situation or one-on-one situations, as opposed to letting, And again, that's the thought process. We didn't do that a lot this year. We weren't very good on defense. But, eventually we'll get there. But that's the whole thought process, is not going to allow the other team to run their offense.
Any questions from the group?
That open stance thing, Brad, is confusing, and without demonstration and et cetera, it would worry a lot of people, I would think, because nobody ever taught teach that man to man. You teach that closed stance, ball you man stuff. So, but it's been effective. It's been effective for us.
We have a Chris Malloy. Do you want to go ahead and ask your question?
Yeah, thanks, Coach, for doing this. This is awesome, man. This is
You
great.
got it.
You're talking about your stance off the ball. What is, your staff's philosophy, all things being equal, physically, defending the basketball one-on-one? That, the game now is such, to me, spread out, beating guys off the bounce. And, we all, everybody has a different style. No one is, is right. But, I'm not, I'm trying to say, what is your staff's philosophy? What's the most important thing, especially if all things physically are equal in terms of a stance, where your hands are? What do you guys really emphasize? Is the bench the best thing to guard the ball? I mean, is that going to account as well? That accountability? What factors do you consider?
You're making me laugh, Chris, because I'm thinking about guys getting beat off the dribble and getting scored on, and turn it to the bench and get them out of the game, get somebody in there that can guard them. But it's done every day. It's a great question. We do it every day, and as a coach, right, you're only going to be good at what you emphasize. You can talk different things, but if you don't make your team do the things that you want them to do, they're not going to do it well. So when it comes to guarding the ball, we do something every day in drill work with it. And so they can get better at it. So it'd be just basic one-on-one from the wing, one-on-one off the dribble from the top, and it's done every day. And it could be our bigger guys guarding our smaller guys to make it harder on them, make it competitive, do it every single day so it becomes something that's a common theme in our program. I'm not getting beat, and I'm blocking this guy down. He ain't going to score on me. No way. I'm going to stay in front of him. So staying in front of the guy, Chris, would be the first thing, is vital. I might not steal the ball from you, but I'm not letting you beat me, and I'm making you shoot a contested shot. So that's really the main goal. Now, if I got somebody who's got, Jaime Jaquez, who led us in deflections, he could be a little bit more aggressive. He's good with his hands. But the key is not to get beat and make the guy shoot a contested shot. That's our philosophy. Now, as far as stance is concerned, everybody teaches it differently, I guess. We like to get our hands back, hands back and out wide for balance. We feel like as soon as you put your arm forward, I don't know if you guys can see this. As soon as your arm goes forward, your head goes forward and you throw you off balance. So the hands back keeps your chin and chest up, and you're able to move with balance. So that's kind of how we teach, guarding the ball. Some guys put their hands in there, try to poke the ball, whatever. Depending on if you have those little guys that can get in a stance like that, not get out of whack, that's fine. But again, we're teaching our guys for our hands here for balance. Straight back, bend your legs, hands here again for balance, containing the dribble, don't get beat. And we're not trying to strip, unless you have a unique talent that can guard somebody and pick his pocket. Most of us don't have that. Stay in front of the guy. Make him shoot a contested shot. And if you play somebody, Mick always says this, if you play a team and all they do is shoot contested shots, they can't beat us. We can't win. And so that theme, that talk all the time, our players know that we're not giving up layups. We're not getting beat off the dribble and giving up layups. Obviously, it happens. We know that. We're not going to give open threes to the other team's best three-point shooters, and we're not going to dumb foul and put them on the foul line. If we do those three things, the other team can't beat us. So our team knows that. Our players know that. Do we execute it every single time? No, of course not. But that's why they pay us the big bucks to make them do it. And but our team knows that. They know that's the philosophy. They know, and it gives them a sense of confidence. Like, all right, we got these guys. If they can't get by us and can't shoot layups, and we don't let Nate Georgeton shoot threes, he's their best 3-point shooter. We don't dumb foul, we're winning this game. And so, I kind of gave you, Chris, a bunch of different things, I think, but hopefully that answered your question about the defensive stance.
No, that was great. Thanks a lot. Thank you very much.
You got it.
Got about 3 more questions to ask, and again, anything else from the group. Coach, you guys at UCLA, you inherited a 14-man roster. It was composed of a combined 9 freshmen and sophomores.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty young group. What was the goal each day when you guys, from the first day of school for workouts or heading into the first day of practice, what was the goal each day to establish the culture that you guys want to build, especially when you have a group that young?
Yeah.
The good side is they're young. They haven't had a lot of other emphasis, but at the same time, they're young and, they got their own ideas. So what was the day-to-day goal to get that mindset and that culture that Coach Cronin and you guys wanted to bring to the floor every single day?
Yeah, I'm smiling. There's so many things. Don't shoot layups with one hand. Don't miss dunks. And I'm being somewhat funny here, but basics. When it came to the court stuff, basics. You'd be surprised. Catching the ball with 2 hands, not with one, catching. Grabbing a rebound with 2 hands. Shooting a power layup, right? Don't take crazy shots. Compete. That's it.
Were things like that, was that going to be part of the plan regardless, or were those things that you guys had noticed as habits that were already in place?
Brad, you can get all kinds of you can get tricky in coaching. You could rely on set plays and different systems and things of that nature. I think Mick tries to keep it really simple when it comes to how you build your program. You never relent on your culture. You got to make sure your culture is intact. You got to play smart on offense and defense. And that means, what does that mean? Don't take bad shots. Don't throw the ball away, right? Run your offense and execute it. Defensively, don't dumb foul. Don't see what's going on. Don't help your teammate. Like, that stuff is not acceptable. And when you put a culture like that together, you're going to win more games than you lose, because the other team probably can't do that all the time, unless you run against a really good program that teaches that stuff, that you're going to have to make some shots to beat them because they're not making mistakes. They're not giving you anything easy. The game becomes really difficult. And so obviously then the talent have to take over. But if you can keep to those core principles, you're going to win a lot of games. And Mick's never going to budge on that stuff. Never. We're not going to take bad shots, quick bad shots that you can't rebound. We're going to share the ball. We're going to execute. The players should know who the ball should go to, right? In the game, in a close game especially. They know who has to have the ball late in the game, who has to take the shot. We should all know who our best defensive players are, and they should be on the court at the end of the game, especially in a defensive situation. There was a time, Brad, we didn't know that answer for a couple of months. We would scratch our heads. He'd turn to me like, who are we going to put in the game on defense? And I don't know. So there was a period of that. We had to figure that out, but eventually we got it. But going back to the original thing, we had to establish a relationship with these players in the beginning when we first got here in the spring, in the summer. We didn't know any of them. We didn't recruit any of them, and so we had to show them that what we were going to teach, build a relationship, and as time goes on, the trust becomes closer and closer, and more and tighter. And then you could start to turn the heat up a little bit more, and coach a little bit harder, and emphasize things more and more. But I think they saw early on that we were going to take our time and go really slow, teach a few fundamentals, a few core values, core principles of how you're going to win games and how the program is going to be established. And I think, it took some time, but eventually it worked.
You work with the front court players at UCLA. So what specific skills do you focus on each day when you're doing your breakdown, your big, little with your bigs and your front court guys? Is there anything that you're looking to work on each and every day, or if you're work on, every other day, or work specifically towards an upcoming game, you want to focus on a specific duck in or elbow jump shot. That's what's going to be available,
Right.
based on your scouting.
I think, as you move on as a coach, you're going to do a lot of different things. You're talking about footwork, you're talking about finishing, shooting, ball handling, passing, rebounding. There's so many things. But I would say this, we're going to compete. We're never not going to offense or rebound in any of the drills with the big guys. We're always going to incorporate something with rebounding. So it could be elbow jumpers. As one guy's shooting an elbow jumper, another guy is in the drill beating managers with pads, getting position for the rebound. And then he'll shoot, the next guy does the same thing. So there's always a rebounding component every day. So I'm teaching offensive rebounding, shooting, and actual offensive rebounding drills. That is something that has to happen every day. And I bring that up, Brad, because when the game starts and I'm in charge of the big men and we shoot and our big guys don't get position or don't go for the rebound, he's looking at me. Your guys aren't rebounding. Your guys. So I don't want to hear that, right? And so I'm going to make sure that we are going to give effort. We're going to be taught on how to get position, where to go, and so rebounding is paramount. Okay, obviously footwork, some kind of footwork and finishing around the basket. Because you guys know breakdowns. You don't have that much time, so you got to get your stuff in. But you got to pound those two areas. I think footwork and finishing and rebounding in a breakdown session has to be a priority. That's what I'm focused on. Now, it could be off a pick and roll, catch and finish, but you're still working on finishing. You're still working on footwork. It could be we work on rip moves from the elbows and different spots on the court. Again, you're working on footwork. You're working on finishing. There's always an offensive rebounding and a footwork finishing component in the drills. And so I think as time goes on, you do it, it starts to show in the games. I think we were +5 or +6 on the glass this year, which
We were +5,
which is pretty good, but I prefer to be like 8 or 10. Our goal on the offensive glass for our team is a 40% rebounding percentage. We weren't 40%. I think we were 35 and change, which would be like 20th or something in the country. So obviously shots you miss, the percentage of those rebounds you get. And so that's something we take a lot of pride in. At Cincinnati, we were always in the top 10 or so. One year, I think we finished second in offensive rebounding percentage. And when you can't score and you can't shoot, you better offensive rebound. And so it's something that we really focused on. But even this year, there was some games off the top of my head. Cody Riley, Washington State. We had a tough time with Washington State in both games. The second game at our place, he dominated the glass. Nate, I don't know how many offensive rebounds he had, about 7 or 8. And literally, we won the game in overtime, mainly because he was getting position, he was getting opposite, he was getting some big rebound putbacks. So I'm going off on the offensive rebounding because I just think that it's something that you can teach, you can demand. You don't have to have skyscrapers to be really good at it. And Cody's only 6'7", 6'8", and he's not necessarily a high leaper, but he gets position and he's tough. And I think that could help you, win games is offensive rebounding. It gives you the second chance. It gives you a better shooting percentage. And I can't tell you how many – we almost won the USC game because of it. Didn't Cody get the offensive rebound, got fouled, they call timeout. He makes unbelievable 2 free throws in the most important part of the season. A guy who was shooting 40% at one point made both free throws. We're up 1. Of course, they go down the other end and hit a step-back 3. But that offensive rebound was the reason why we had a chance to win the game. So I can't stress that enough. If I was a head coach, high school or college, whatever, I'm doing that every day with our players.
Any questions from the group? We got one more, just a little kind of a fun question for Coach here. But anybody else want to ask a question before we wrap it up? Okay. Coach, last one here, kind of end on a fun one here. You and Coach Cronin are known for using movie lines in your performances. You're big movie buffs from what we've read. I know Phil Jackson used to edit movie scenes into the film sessions with the Bulls. So do you have a go-to movie or a go-to line that you will use in practice or, anytime you're talking to the players about something, anything that we can use, that you can pass on to these guys that are listening?
there's so many there's so many stupid lines that we do that breaks the ice with the guys. They laugh, and usually it's an older movie. So when I say older, 80s maybe, and so these guys are looking at us like we're crazy. Like, you know, they don't see the movies that we thought were great movies, and so Mick will always throw a line out at the end of practice. In various movies, and they're looking at him like, "What are you talking about?" Like, and we're like, "We never saw that movie." Like, you know, we start busting their chops. But for me, pretty simple. Okay, ready? Godfather 1 and 2, Casino, Goodfellas, Braveheart, Black Hawk Down. My girlfriend, she sees Black Hawk Down's on. She said, "How many times are you going to watch the same movies?" And I just say, "I'm going to never stop watching it. Every time it's on, I'm going to keep watching it."
Awesome. Any questions from the group again? We're about to wrap this up.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
I'll make a statement though before you go. Like,
yeah.
Listen, this is awesome. We're so excited to be at UCLA in California. This is a beautiful place. Unfortunately, we're in difficult times, right? And but I try to every day. I didn't do it today, but I need a day off. But going out and you know, wearing my mask. I actually have a little cooling gaiter thing that I put over my mouth. Go for walks, 11, 12 miles a day. I'm out there. Colin knows. He's seen me out there. I think he's got off now. But just get outside and enjoy the weather and constantly trying to learn. Because the bell is going to ring for us as coaches. We're going to have to step in the ring at some point. I don't know when it's going to be. I don't know how it's going to look. I know some of the high school stuff, right? We pushed it back into the spring. You know, we're gonna have to step in the ring. So we got to be ready, and we got to be focused, and we got to be positive. And I am certainly positive. I talk to the players on our team. I try to call 1 or 2 of them a day. And hey, man, I don't know what you're doing. We can't do anything with you, but the bell is going to ring. So you got to be ready. And I think as coaches, we got to motivate our players somehow. We got to keep talking to them. Because there's so much going on. We get caught up in our own lives, and these kids are out there and there's nobody talking to them. Who's talking to these kids? So if you can't physically be with them, which I'm not sure if you guys can do that or not, we got to be talking to them as much as possible and giving them some positivity that there's going to be light at the end of this tunnel somehow. Yeah, obviously we can't say what it's going to look like because we don't know, but I believe it's going to happen. And I think it's important. I could sense the guys are excited. Usually they don't want to talk, but when I call them and talk to them, they're excited about talking about it. They're excited that, you know, you're showing interest in how they're doing and what they're doing and keeping them motivated. I think that's really important for us coaches now during these really, really difficult times. So hopefully everyone's doing it. That's just my little 2 cents, and I appreciate you guys.
It's great words, Coach. Appreciate it.
You got it.
Coach Freitas, anything?
No, thank you so much, Darren. Appreciate it. Waxy, the next one is, are we on the 8th? Is that correct?
That's correct. That'll be Saturday, August 8th.
Awesome. Well, hey, guys, everybody, thank you for joining in, and we will talk to you in a couple of weeks. And again, Coach Savino, thank you very much for your time. We know you got a lot of things going on. Appreciate you giving us an hour.